Welcome back, everybody. This is Wally, the Space Cowboy Variety Show. We're back with spoilers, bruh, for episode 6 of WandaVision. Here we have our special guest, Vito. He's with Build Better West Coast.
Yeah, build better LA.
Yeah. The intro is very Malcolm in the Middle-esque, very 90s angsty punk music.
Yeah, the intro was, I mean, honestly, like the best part of the whole show. Like from the opening credit roll, we know exactly where we are in the timeline. Late '99, early 2000s, a whole bunch of like rad middle America shots of like Wanda getting ready. It's very Malcolm in the Middle, and I loved every second of it.
So at the start of the episode, we find out that it's Halloween, and the twins are dressed up in their costumes, as well as Wanda and Vision, and eventually we see Pietro in his old-fashioned X-Men outfits. They're all in their outfits.
Yeah, no, I thought that was a super neat nod to the comic books. I loved that the like, especially Pietro's hair, like
Mm-hmm.
being super high, almost in an Ace Ventura style, as like a different nod to the '90s. Because like in the comics, he has like these little wisps, but
Mm-hmm.
like he had like 5 inches of hair up there, and I thought that was a neat little. And then there were a bunch of facial gestures
Mm-hmm.
that what is that guy's name? Evans
Uh,
did throughout the episode,
mm-hmm.
and it just kept reminding me of like the Mask and Ace Ventura, and I feel like he was channeling Jim Carrey through the whole episode.
Mm. Yeah, and it also helps that he's acting like a giant man-child the entire time.
Yeah, he's the classic like Uncle Joey,
Mm-hmm.
especially Francis from Malcolm in the Middle, just kind of a piece of crap uncle character who's just there
Mm-hmm.
to try to bridge the gap between like the father figure and the fun uncle. And I thought Pietro filled that role super well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pietro and Wanda kind of get into it, a conversation at the beginning of the episode about a memory that Pietro has of them as children going on a Halloween, trick or treating and stuff, and they get the fish, and it's a funny scene. And Wanda doesn't quite remember it, and Pietro says, "You probably just suppressed a lot of trauma." Do you think that's just kind of like a little on the nose, like for what's been going on this season?
That I think that was the first indication in the episode that everything's not what we think it is, because like, so in that they are probably 4 5 or 6, and they lose their parents when they're 10. So
Mm.
obviously we know that their parents made those costumes, but he's dressed up like Nick Fury and she's dressed up like Black Widow, and there's no way they would know those characters, so it feels like a fabricated memory,
Mm.
either in a trope of the episode to just like do one of those jump cut callbacks, or something else. I think the show has been really good about like what is just a TV trope and what matters, and a lot of those moments matter.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see what kind of like has double meanings and what doesn't. As the series goes on, you get a lot of those reveals. It's like, oh yeah, that did matter. And
Yeah, I think it is going to matter coming up that she didn't remember that, just like she didn't remember in the last episode. Um, Shoot, I totally forgot. But when she's talking to Vision at the end of the episode, she's like, I don't know who that is. I think there's a lot of double talk going on
hmm
from Wanda.
oh, for sure. So after that scene, we get a little clip of the sword director, and he's kind of copping an attitude with Monica in the meeting that they're having. And do you think that there's a definite difference in demeanor between people who've been snapped away and then those who've been still there for 5 years, or is that just like the director being a dickhead?
I don't know how they're really pushing it. We saw in Endgame a lot of the trauma of the survivors, of the people who were left behind, and there's definitely something there. There's definitely a, I don't know, a feeling toward the ones who came back, but we haven't, like, this is the first time we've actually gotten a chance to see that interaction between those who were snapped away and those who stayed around. And it could just be the sword director being a douche nozzle. It
Mm,
could be the the tension that was shown in, I think, episode 4 between him and Monica, as she is like the rightful heir to the head of Sword, but he is being put in place, and there's a lot of like, this is my job and you're not going to take it from me.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I think that's still very unclear what beef exists between them.
After that, we kind of see Wanda and Pietro taking the kids trick or treating, and Pietro being, scumbag uncles, taking the kids around, smashing all the pumpkins and taking all the candy and stuff. And Wanda runs into Herb, her neighbor, and she's talking about some. Herb's got some things going on the radio, basically just talking about the all the happenstances going on with Pietro and them causing a bunch of trouble, and it's a little funny. And Wanda comes to him with like a discrepancy about something, and Herb is like, "So, do you want anything changed?" And it's like another one of
Yeah,
those double meanings.
I've found that interesting because this isn't the first time that someone has spoken directly to Wanda as though she's the director of this show.
Hmm.
And I find it, I don't know, I keep trying to take tabs of who did it. Agnes did it, the mailman's done it, Herb has done it, and I'm trying to figure out like what relevance each of those characters has to the thing. But I think it's just a general like godhead reverence of all these people who are just like, you're the god here. What can we do to make it better? Because we know what happens if we don't. Like, we're already zombies in agonizing
Hmm.
pain. Like, what how can we make this better for you? And that's the other thing, is her emotions seem to be very in control of her powers.
Hmm.
So keeping that as happy as possible in a blissful state probably directly results to like them not being in pain.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I think it's very telling that more and more characters seem to know what's going on without overtly knowing what's going
Yeah, like there was that weird part. I think it was in like episode 3. Herb is like sawing through the his little yard there, that little gate,
Yeah,
and
I'm still waiting to figure out what's going on with that. Like, it seemed like a glitch in the Matrix, but it felt
mhm.
like more.
Yeah, because like Agnes is also the one who's approached. It's like, oh, hey, Wanda's the director, as you said, and like Herb is the only other person I can think of that was really like that, aside from like the mailman and everything. But it's like that that just seemed really off-putting to me. It's like he's watching them, paying attention to them, as opposed to having a job to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very strange. This show, like we said a little earlier, has done a very good job of keeping keeping the tension high that you don't really know what's on purpose and what's just TV magic.
Hmm. And talking about Herb and everybody having like a specific job to do. So while Wanda is taking the kids out trick or treating, Vision's off on a quest to kind of figure out what's going on with the town. While Wanda's, I guess, like sidetracked with the boys and everything. And he runs across like a lady acting like a little robotronic, trying to hang up like yard decorations, but she's like crying and she's not actually hanging them up. She just keeps doing the same movement over and over again. Like it's like she can't complete her task because she's not like connecting to whatever
Yeah,
Wanda is putting out. And it seems like the farther out that you get from Wanda, the more glitchier things get. Like the mailman and Rick and Morty, where he's like, "My man," he's like glitching through the tree.
yeah, yeah. I think Wanda is the source of power for this reality. Like, she controls everything inside Hex, but she is the battery that everyone's running off of. So
Hmm.
wherever she is, and it all kind of comes back to this whole TV trope. Like, wherever the action is, wherever the point of action character we're following is, that's the only thing that really matters. Everything else is just kind of background noise and doesn't doesn't seem to be a part of the action. And I feel like this is even like further instigated when Vision flies up into the air, and he, like, you can tell he's listening to where the action of the town is, which is town square where Wanda is. And then as he goes on, it's just silent. And
Hmm.
then he pans over to the car. But like, it's it's just even more enforcement that like Wanda is in control. Like, Wanda is what everything is about.
Hmm. So in between the next scene with Wanda and Pietro, there's a commercial. It's like a weird '90s style, like you know what I mean. The weirdness. It's like claymation and other stuff, but it's like a starving child on an island, and it's the Yo Magic, I believe, is the product is called. The pudding or the yogurt is what it is. It's like Yo Magic yogurt, and it's a snack for survivors, is how it puts it. And then that's what Ultron refers to Wanda and Pietro in Age of Ultron.
So this commercial is an anomaly compared to all the commercials previously. The rest of them, it was very obvious what it was talking about, almost like a self-flagellation of Wanda, like reminding herself of all the crappy stuff in her past. This one didn't have a whole lot of the hints. Like there's a little bit of semblance between her being on an island by herself and her talking about like the emptiness, wells of despair with Pietro. But this one was weird. There's a lot going on there, and I can't really tell what's going on. I feel like the kid on the island is Pietro, and because he wasn't able to access like the magic,
Mm-hmm.
he died. Whereas Wanda has the magic and thus survived. But I could just be reading too much into that. The whole magic, like the whole feel of the commercial is super 90s, super on point. Like between the animal mascot, it being about yogurt, the whole claymation style, but it was also like remarkably dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's just like on second watching, I still have no idea what's going on with that commercial.
So it's interesting that you point out that Pietro wasn't the child in the commercial is Pietro, and he wasn't able to access the magic, because like in that commercial, that kid like can't get the food open, and then he dies.
Yeah, he gets help from an outside source. Don't know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
If I so a little bit ago, I was thinking like if we follow the train that Mephisto is in the show, and he has been um, shown by like the animals in the show, this follows that train of him being again an animal,
Mm-hmm.
um, talking about the magic, and also like the brand name Yo Magic feels like a play on your magic and eating and feeding on your magic. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is just more red herrings or if this is like a direct call out of this is how someone is surviving, is feeding on your magic.
Mm-hmm. After we hit the commercial, we see Wanda Pietro walking outside of the theater, and on the marquee is Parent Trap and The Incredibles. So The Incredibles didn't come out until 2003. Parent Trap is a '90s movie, and I wonder if there's gonna start be some like weird merging of like the decades.
So I noticed that last week actually. The first episode is like Dick Van Dyke, 1950s. The second one's like Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie, like 1960s. But then from that point on, it's kind of Brady Bunch, which spanned 70s and 80s. And then the 80s decade was very much Family Ties Growing Pains, which is 80s, but also Full House, which started in the 80s and ended in the 90s. So I don't know if it's as much a we're sticking to a decade or we're sticking to a trope, because these are
Mm-hmm.
the jumps in sitcoms. And after the Full House era of genre, we didn't really have anything in the early 90s. We had Moesha and stuff. So and then like the next like genre defining style of show was Malcolm in the Middle, and that was year 2000. So I don't know if we're just if there's a merging going on or if we're actually just following a timeline of tropes, and the next one will be like How I Met Your Mother, Two and a Half Men. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the next like decade of sitcoms.
Oh, Wanda's just gonna go missing, and it's gonna be like Vision and Pietro
This was
taking
a
care of the
yeah, this
boys.
was a dude show. Oh my goodness, I would love a Vision and Pietro show. Like, give me more of that.
That would be spectacular. So, and also, there's like a lot to really unpack between Wanda and Pietro in this episode, because while they're outside the marquee, Pietro and Wanda kind of argue about Pietro's behavior, and he tells her, "He's like, well, that's what you wanted, right? You wanted me to come to town, you know, raise a little hell, give you some grief."
Yeah, no, it's so strange their dynamic because he's another character that she doesn't have any control over, but seems to know too much.
Mm-hmm.
The big defining thing for me is the big reveal where you find out he's dead and he has the bullet holes. It's still Evan Peters, I think that's the name. Like it's still
Yeah,
X-Men timeline Quicksilver, but with MCU timeline holes. So like it's even more defining. This is MCU timeline Pietro, but he's got X-Men timeline space, and I have no idea what that means.
I wonder if it's like a weird like transmutation, kind of like everything else that comes into the hex. Like there's a weird transmuted like variation of it,
Yeah,
and
no, it could be. It could be a weird uh, era appropriate transmutation of the character.
mhm. Yeah, like a '90s variant or whatever, because we see them younger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
And
I did see a couple theories on about when he was brought into the hex. The reason he is X-Men timeline is because the 1980s is when that Pietro timeline exists, like Days of
mhm,
Future Past or whatever. That's set in 1980s, and that's why he was transformed into that version. And I was like, that feels convenient. I
mhm.
don't know, but I mean, like we said, we don't know what is a trope and what is important.
Mm. So for the viewers at home, just go ahead and put in the comments below which Quicksilver is your favorite, Evan Peters or the one from the MCU timeline. I personally like the '80s X-Men version. I think that's
You
wonderful. He's the most fun.
you know, I when I when I rewatched the whole MCU like arc and got to Age of Ultron, I really like MCU timeline Pietro.
Hmm.
He's super good at what he does. He's just something I've never seen before.
Yeah, like I liked him too, but it's just like after seeing the reveal from last week, I went and watched some YouTube clips of like the Evan Peters things where he's slowing down time to run through the mansion to save all the kids from the exploding X mansion, and I was like, your rhythmics is playing in the background. It's like, oh, this is wonderful. This is cool.
Yeah, no, like the X Men, the the Sony timeline gets a lot of flack for just being bad, but there's a lot of really good uh, nuggets in there,
Hmm.
and the way they treated Quicksilver is just so perfectly 1990s comics. And I'm a little sad we didn't get a shout out to like the 1990s animated X-Men show
Oh
in this
yeah,
episode because I felt like it would have been perfect to just do something.
it'd like do the at least the theme or something like during the
Yeah,
credits even.
like yeah, during the credits or even like over a radio somewhere, just da 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 da.
Or the kids are watching it while they're eating their breakfast.
Oh, that would have been so good.
Yeah, also in that scene, we discover that Speed gets his powers, and then
Yeah,
he's out
no,
zooming around.
the kids getting their powers is I mean, it's convenient. It's very much in line with their like ability to just like grow.
Hmm.
But also just the TV tropes of like last week they were babies and then they were like kids. Now might as well give them a reason to be here.
Yeah.
But yeah, him being super fast. I love the way that Pietro responds to it. I love that he's just like super excited. He's like knock off the old Maximoff Glock,
Hmm.
and it's beautiful.
And at that point that the kids get their powers, Wanda tells them not to go past a certain part of the town, and we'll return to that when we get back to Vision later.
Yeah,
But
that town. I definitely took note of that street name, and I'm like, that's
mhm.
coming up.
Yeah, when I watched it the first time, I was like, "Why is that important?" And then you see Vision, and I was like, "Oh no, this is there. That street's got to be around here somewhere."
Yeah,
So back at the sword encampment after Darcy and Monica and Jimmy Woo, they kind of discover that going to the Hex has like transmuted like Monica's DNA because she wants to go back in. So Darcy's doing some quick little maths or whatever, and she finds out that anybody who's been in and out of um the Hex has their blood's been altered. And I've seen chat in our personal spoilers chat about maybe this is what brings the mutants around is
that
being inside
is
the
what
Hex.
I that is what I am hoping. So there is another thought about this: is has Monica had any blood work done since returning from the snap? Could the mutants actually be everyone who has returned from the snap? Which I realize that
Uh
that's a jump in logic. Um, but yeah, I thought it was really interesting that the hex itself would encompass enough people in this town of, I think they said 2 or 3 thousand people, to kind of just like make mutants exist in the amount or population that they existed in the comics, and
Mhm.
it allows for some very interesting things with Monica. It gives her access to being Photon without being Captain Marvel. It now that well, some spoilers for the rest of the episode. Now that Darcy's in the Hex,
Mhm.
it allows for her to do some crazy things, and I I feel like it allows for the Sword group to now be like a brotherhood sort of group. Like I don't know. Now that we have like established kind of bad guys
Mhm.
going into the Hex, if that is how we get mutants, that's how we get bad guy
Oh, for sure. Those guys are
mutants.
dickheads.
Yeah, they are bad guys.
Mhm.
And originally, when I saw them, I was thinking that this was a way for the MCU to kind of address the Purifiers, Sentinels,
Mhm.
um, because of the way he talked about superpowered individuals
Yeah.
in that like the stain of coming back from the snap. But now, like they're going through the Hex, and if we do get mutants from the Hex, they will be superpowered individuals. So I don't know.
Yeah. That would be very interesting to see how this turns out, and I'm assuming it's going to have some like solid repercussions instead of just, oh well, I mean, because they go through the Hex, like they turn into clowns and stuff, but we still don't know the long term effects of this blood transmutation that's been going on with Monica. So after they kind of find out about Monica's blood work that the director's been keeping from them, she says she has a contact who's going to help her get back into the Hex. Do we have any ideas of who that might be? Or I mean, it's probably going to get spoiled next episode, but I mean, do we have any idea of who that could possibly be?
I mean, we have who we wanted to be ideas, obviously, because she talked about a neuroscientist. Everyone in the whole world wants that to be Reed Richards or Doctor Doom.
Mm,
I don't think that that's how we're going to get the Fantastic Four. I think that that's just hopeful thinking. But I do think that it's going to be someone very important uh, as that like super high level scientist mind, and that it's going to open up a whole new branch.
I guess I'll just wait till next week. I
Yeah,
guess.
dude, next week's going to be big. It's like I
Mm,
was saying in our chat. There's no like oh my god moments in this episode, but there's so many little breadcrumbs that will lead into like the next 3 episodes just being edge of your seat nonstop. Something's gonna happen,
for sure.
and I think that even gets further put to the point, like how the episode ends with the Hex just expanding to probably double its size. Like it's huge
Oh yeah, for
now.
sure. After it splits off from the Darcy and Co. at the sword encampment, it goes to Vision, who is on the edge of town, and he runs into Agnes, who's also having like connection issues, dial-up noises in the background.
Yeah,
So he does the finger trick like he does with Norm, and they talk about how he was an Avenger, and he's like, I don't know who the Avengers are, and she's like, oh, you died, and he's just, it's news to him.
yeah. Now the I think the important part of that conversation is not like the you died reveal, but the fact that he doesn't know who the Avengers are, because before he was Vision, he was Jarvis, so he knows who the Avengers are, and him being, I think this just kind of reinstills the fact that if he was brought back to life by Wanda in sort of a meat puppet zombie thing, then she planted the seed of who he is, and she left out all of the things that could hurt him.
Hmm.
And he's only Vision. Just like I think Pietro, like that's the other thing is like Pietro is definitely also kind of like meat zombie puppet,
Hmm.
and he does remember stuff about the past. So I don't know, it's very interesting to see who knows what, but I think all of it comes back to the fact that like Wanda is definitely in control.
But was it you that mentioned that Pietro is kind of there just to for her to Wanda to flesh out her own feelings about what's been going on, as opposed to Vision, who she's trying to basically protect, but with she needs a friend that she can talk to about how she feels and stuff like that, and she can't get that with Vision because she's having to hide the fact that he's dead.
Yeah, it could be that Pietro is just sort of like a therapy in this Shangri-La that she created, but like if he is, he's doing a bad job. Like he hits her with a your dead husband can't die twice. Like that feels nefarious. That like that line alone kind of gives gives way to all of the like no he's Mephisto. Like
Could also just be, devil on your shoulder, scumbag uncle in
like
it.
and that's the thing is he feels like Evan Peters Maximoff, not MCU Pietro, and
Hmm.
that's why it's so weird.
Yeah. So there's the fun theory that I believe Nick pitched was Agnes is dressed like a witch, so she could possibly be Agatha Harkness, and for the kids at home, she's the mother of Nicholas Scratch, and the bunny in the second episode, yeah, the second episode, is also named Scratch.
Yeah, I've thought from her introduction that she was definitely Agatha Harkness. From like the very first time you see her with that like brooch,
Hmm.
and then every episode. Although I don't remember if she had one on this episode. Well, no, she did because she was a witch. She she's had like a version of that brooch, and that's kind of like Agnes's calling card in the comics. So she has this like gaudy, ugly brooch. So
Yeah.
I for sure think that I personally like independent theory. I think the connection issue. I think that was a play, man. I think
Mhm.
she's fully in control of her own like capabilities, and like she's not under Wanda's control. I think she's an independent actor.
So she's like double agenting, kind of, but
Probably. I
yeah.
think if there is a tie to Mephisto or Nightmare, that she's on that side.
Hmm. Yeah, that is a very interesting theory that I hope we get to see come to some sort of fruition, or because like some of these fan theories, they're fun, and
Yeah,
and then
but
sometimes they,
some of
yeah.
them are out there.
But they've been toying a lot with like a lot of these Mephisto jabs, and I wonder if they're actually gonna do anything with it. So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. Um,
Knowing MCU, I feel like it's gonna be that if he this is um a preamble to the whole multiverse of madness Doctor Strange thing,
mhm,
that he's gonna show up at the very end and it's gonna be kind of like a nod to him rather than him being involved. Like my overarching theory is that Wanda is actually in control of all this, and this was all Wanda's doing. And Mephisto's involvement has always just been like, you should do this, like just pointing, like the For the Kids
mhm,
episode, and the general like pushes in the right direction. But just like the devil, he didn't do any of the work. He's just telling you what you should do,
mhm. It's showing you the way.
showing you the way.
Yeah, just like a car salesman, I'm not upselling you on all these amenities. I'm informing you about all the things you can get. I'm educating you.
Yeah,
So after Agnes kind of takes off in her car, there's a close up of Vision just like standing on the street next to the sign that has the name of the street that Wanda told the kids not to go past. And
hmm,
on the opposite side, there's like a field, and then you see like the barrier, and then Vision sees that, and then it cuts to Wanda and Pietro again, where they're having more crazy conversations, things to unpack. Like this episode is the first time you see like other children other than just Tommy
yeah.
and Billy. And then Pietro's like, "So where have you been hiding the kids? They've been in a warehouse somewhere? Well, what's the deal here?"
So I thought the whole kids thing. I don't know. I was 50-50 after last episode when Vision literally like asks Wanda straight up, "Where are the children?" Like
Hmm.
I walk by a playground every day to work. There are no children. Where are the children? And all of a sudden we hit a Halloween episode where it's just it's an overcorrection. on Wanda's part. There are more children than could exist in town.
Mhm.
And when Pietro questions her about it, she looks genuinely shocked that like she would even be a question about this, and we never get a real answer from her. And I think it's more on the whole like whose side is Pietro on, and where did this dude come from? How does he know what he knows?
Right? So, Wanda kind of admits that she knows that she's like responsible for what's been happening. But when I talked to Stax last episode, we were talking about how we're not really sure whether she's telling the truth or not. But in this episode, when she's talking to Pietro, I think she's honestly telling, like, back to the therapy thing, this is the truth. Everything that she's telling him is the truth. And she truly doesn't know how this all started. It's just kind of like she's here now and she's just going to do this because this is what she wants. She wants to have vision in the kids, and this is how she's going to protect it.
I 100% agree. I want to believe her when she says those things. To believe her when she says the I don't know to Vision or to Pietro. But at the same time, we've seen her outside the hex. We've seen the way that she reacted at the end of the episode where she enlarges the hex. Like, I think she, not to get super meta, but I think there are two versions of Wanda in this. There's the one who's playing the part, there's the actress, and then there's the director. And director Wanda is not telling actress Wanda. She is intentionally keeping her in the dark things because it would break character. It would break the whole fantasy of what she's involved in. And like we've already had kind of blips here and there of that,
Mm-hmm.
harkening back to those first episodes where she's like rewinding time and like banishing people out of the blue.
So it's
And
just
I
like
think
her psyche's protecting herself.
I think her psyche is protecting herself, and I think the visual for that is when her eyes light,
Mm-hmm.
because we see like a different power level of Wanda come out at that point, and it's way worse than like the happy mid-century suburban house mom
Yeah.
that she's playing.
Oh, and something that we almost forgot is they ask each other about their accents and what happened to them.
I loved that. I thought I don't think that is a breadcrumb or a hint. I think that's just like a at uh at TV tropes and how
Mm-hmm.
she has been, like Stack said, inconsistent in her entire of that accent. I do think that it was on purpose that she had a Sokovian accent outside the hex,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it just goes back to the like she's playing a part and she
Mm-hmm.
wants to be this this version of herself even though she's not,
Yeah, for sure.
and and she's maybe projecting that onto Pietro, and that's why he doesn't have it. Or he could just be
Yeah.
Quicksilver.
So at the end of the episode, Vision painfully, it looks like, escapes the hex. He's getting like parts of him are getting torn off, and Darcy kind of runs out there like an idiot, and with the surrounded by other sword people, and she's like, "Hey, someone help this guy!" And then what happens? She gets handcuffed to a car,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's when the other twin gets his powers, and you can kind of just hear Vision like suffering from the other side of the hex. And then Wanda kind of realizes what is going on. She makes the barrier bigger, and all the most of the sword people try and run away. Darcy's handcuffed to a vehicle; she can't get away. Gets sucked up by the hex. The hex moves on like just a giant wave, and sucks up a lot of the other sword people. And then the director is the only one to make it away without having getting sucked up by the hex.
I think the finale of the episode is. I think it just further drives home the point. Wanda is the most powerful person in the MCU,
Hmm.
and she's able to like at the whim of something that she. So there's a lot going on. I think in that. I do think that she is encapsulated by this hex and doesn't know what's going on outside of it, and the fact that her son can hear outside of the hex is news to her and blows her away.
Hmm.
And the fact that she expanded the hex, the the her son her Wiccan stopping speed in the exact she stopped Quicksilver when they were doing. There's a lot of really funny little nods at the end of this episode, and I thought it was perfect. I thought it was super super cool. I'm excited to see Darcy inside the Hex, aka Two Broke Girls Darcy. Um, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this card. If
Mm,
maybe we get a American Horror Story nod, which we probably won't, but like we probably could.
mm.
There's a lot of really neat TV stuff going on, and that's been my favorite part of this show is just all of the TV nods.
Yeah, I am definitely excited to see what happened. And maybe we'll get like an Office like s type episode, and it was
Oh man,
like I fucking the camera, like
I want to see. I want to see Jimmy Woo shoot a Jim look at the camera.
he's gonna put the director's stapler in a thing of Jello.
I've seen all sorts of the introduction of Reed Richards in the show. Be like, well, I don't know why you want John Krasinski in the show. He's already in the show. It's fantastic. I've loved this show, and I think that it's both a testament to the MCU's storytelling because it's been like Lost level good,
Hmm.
and but also their attention to detail of just TV tropes. I don't know if you noticed in the very beginning when Wiccan is talking to the camera, and then they have that brother conversation,
Hmm.
and they like zoom in on Pietro on the couch. You see him up close, and he's clear, and then there's this like fake digital blur in the middle, and then you see the kids, and that's a nod to the crappy cameras of the 90s that couldn't handle close range and long range. So they've digitally introduced blur, even though our cameras are way better than that. We saw it last episode with the RGB bleed
Hmm.
that was super prevalent in like 80s shows, and they just like digitally put that stuff in, and I'm like, it's that sort of stuff that makes you realize like they're paying attention to TV and how TV works,
So
or
I
at least Wanda was.
Yeah, for sure. But it's cool that you bring that up because when Darcy's doing her computer thing in the episode, she's getting ready to send an email, and then in the little drop down thing, whenever she types in like James or whatever, there's two names there, and those are the visual effects guys for the episodes.
Yeah, dude, on their end credit rolls on nearly all of them, it's been different people who worked on the show in sort of similar roles to what they're doing, but it's like the writers and stuff that
Hmm.
keep putting themselves in the credits.
Well, thanks for joining me today, Vito, and we'll see you, Space Cowboy and or gal, in the next episode of Spoilers, bruh.
Spoilers, bruh.